Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time I'm starting off another series because there's a new movie coming out, and that is The Crow. It's the only way I own The Crow, and the other three movies I own on a 3-on-1 DVD. Um, this is a 1994 revenge thriller film directed by Alex Proyas, starring Brandon Lee, Rochelle Davis, Ernie Hudson, Michael Wincott, Bai Ling, uh, and David Patrick Kelly. Yeah, and Tony Todd. In this film, exactly 1 year after young rock guitarist Eric Draven and his fiancée are brutally killed by a ruthless gang of criminals, Draven, watched over by a hypnotic crow, returns from the grave to exact revenge. So, what did I think of The Crow? Well, I've always really loved this film, and while I can't say it's a 10 out of 10 still, I do still think it's a classic, and a lot of films owe a lot of influence to it, and still, it sucks about the passing of Brandon Lee during the production. But let me get to the cast. Brandon Lee plays Eric Draven, or The Crow. I think Brandon Lee shows massive acting talent in this film. Some people might not want to admit it. They might say Nepo baby because son of Bruce Lee. But I still thought he was a very talented actor, martial artist. I'd still like to look at his other movies, Legacy of Rage, maybe Kung Fu, the movie, Rapid Fire, Showdown Little Tokyo. Yeah. Um, but yeah, while I do wish they showed off some of his martial arts in this, really, it was still nice to see this type of thing from him. And again, I think his acting worked quite well for the film. Rochelle Davis plays Sarah Moore. She's a girl that Eric and Shelley took care of, kinda, because the mom was a druggie, never taking care of her. Um, she does okay in the film. She's not a bad child actor, but I could do with someone else. She didn't do much of after this. Um, yeah, she was okay. Ernie Hudson plays Sergeant Albrecht. He's a police sergeant who isn't very much liked in his precinct. But I think Ernie Hudson is a very nice presence to have in a film like this. He's got some pretty funny lines. He's a likable character. Michael Wincott plays Top Dollar. He's basically the leader of this group of this gang that went after Brandon Lee, or excuse me, Eric. Michael Wincott, uh, very interesting. He was the actor that fired the prop gun that went off, or not prop gun, but the gun that went off and killed Brandon Lee. And apparently that had a profound effect on him, which I can see why. That sounds like a fucked up situation to be in. I do feel bad for him. Um, and uh, for that, his performance in this is gleefully menacing. I think he's over the top in just the right ways. And yeah, very enjoyable performance. Bai Ling plays Micah, who's she's Top Dollar's half sister and lover, which weird. Bai Ling, I don't think is a bad actress. I saw her in a film called Red Corner with Richard Gere, where she was pretty good, I thought. She never really got big Hollywood stardom, and that might have been partly because of the weird plastic surgery she got, not like around the 2000s, I think, which she denies ever getting plastic surgery. She looks fine now, I think, but for a while her face looked really weird and kind of messed up. But still, I think she does good in this film. Um, David Patrick Kelly plays T-Bird, one of the goons. David Patrick Kelly's in a ton of films from Walter Hill. You'll recognize him in 48 Hours. Um, Kind of a character that just kind of disappears in 48 Hours also. Um, but he was a bigger villain in Last Man Standing, which is I think a bit of an underrated film. I don't love it, but I do think it's a fun enough action western type thing. But David Patrick Kelly does a good job here. Angel David plays Skank. I remember Angel David from being in The Substitute 2, where he's supposed to be Raymond Cruz's character from the first Substitute, which I think Substitute 2 is fine. I enjoy it, but it's also one of those movies where the action is not insanely well done. It's kind of pedestrian. Again, directed by Stephen Pearl, who, if anybody knows Derek Savage, the Cool Cat guy, he's in the like first 420 awards. That's I know it's a very niche reference, but he's the guy talking about like cocaine and skunk's asshole. Like I don't even remember what the fuck he was doing. He crazy fucking guy. But yeah, and Tony Todd as Grange, another kind of goon. I really enjoy Tony Todd a lot. I love him as Candyman. I love seeing him in everything. But with this film, is it perfect? No. Harsh part of that 100% is due to 100% part of its flaws are due to Brandon Lee's untimely passing. They filmed most of his scenes before he died, but there were scenes where they had to use digital manipulation, digital effects in order to accomplish that. And for the most part, I think they pulled it off. I think one of the main shots was a shot where he's like walking in the dark towards like a window where it's like an ultimate like, ooh, he's actually the Crow now moments and the like lightning flashes, and I think when his face shows up, that is a superimposed face of Brandon Lee. If that was digital effects back in 94, then that's spectacular. But there are other bits where there's like this one bit where he jumps off a building and you see him land, stick the landing, and the camera movement is weird. Almost like it's like he's like rotoscoped in and it looks kind of like music video like. It's very odd. Um, there's some weird yeah, there's some weird digital effects. There's some weird compositing that I don't 100% love, especially in the opening shot where you see all these buildings covered in fire. I think I could actually see where it had been cut out. And I understand it's not like a huge budget film. It was about $21 million, which for back then was still a decent enough budget, but some of these effects feel like they're biting off a little more than they could chew. I know it's like the old way of doing those effects, but yeah, some of them just don't work nowadays, or they just kind of look a bit outdated. I didn't notice a lot of CGI specifically, but these kind of like rotoscoped effects, it didn't look the best. Um, there's also the death scenes. I think quite a few of them were cut down significantly or edited around because of the MPAA. Because I've noticed a lot of movies in the mid 90s were like hacked to shreds sometimes over the violence, and this feels like one of them. Especially the bit with Micah, they're cutting around it so much. And to be honest, it is a brutal scene, but I think it kind of lost a tiny bit of something because of how it had to be edited. And 100% this is an MPAA thing because the weird editing choices only happen during the scenes of violence. And even in the ending shot, which is still or the last person who dies, that shot, still looks pretty cool, but it's very obvious they're like cutting around it to like not show it for too long. And that is a bit of a shame because there are some very interesting kills in this and some very interesting ways of dispatching villains. Um, I would also say that I I'm not super happy of kind of lack of backstory we get for um Eric as a character. Um, as like the way that the film starts out with him already dead, I'm not usually into films, revenge films that do it that way, even though they do try to like show more of his backstory as the film progresses through flashbacks. I'm still not huge on that. Um, some of the like goons I don't think have the best dialogue. Some of them are kind of just stereotypical bad guys. Um, I mean, the real standout of them all is Michael Wincott and also Tony Todd whenever he's on screen. But yeah, a lot of the goons are just kind of whatever. They don't really have a lot of identity to them. Even David Patrick Kelly, who is always creepy and gets down the like shit eating that like that whole thing, he still gets it down. But yeah, it's kind of like whatever kind of villains. Um, but I do have a lot of things to say about this film, like in a positive light. For instance, um, this The Matrix has so much to like. Alex Proyas deserves so much credit because The Matrix straight up kind of rips this whole like its whole aesthetic from The Crow and Dark City, both Alex Proyas films that had this type of like dark setting. It's night all the time. Same with Running Man. The Matrix like owes a lot to those. And I 100% watch this over The Matrix. Maybe I'm the only one that's like that. I would watch this or Dark City over The Matrix. I still like The Matrix, don't get me wrong, but I'd say Brandon Lee beats out Keanu Reeves in acting any day. I like Keanu Reeves, but I don't think his acting in The Matrix is even close to his strongest. The visuals, I think, are more compelling here. There's straight up shots in this that are almost exactly the same as The Matrix. There's the bit where uh, Eric is running across the rooftops, and it's almost the exact same shot as in The Matrix. Um, a lot of the like crazy like acrobatic stuff, Dark City, the whole like mind thing, like so much stuff from these movies was lifted for The Matrix, and it's insane they don't get that much credit nowadays. Um, but the visuals I think is where this film really stands out, like in its gothic tone. The gothic tone and the gothic visuals really work in this film's favor. Um, very, it's a very visually arresting film. Um, again, the performances, Brandon Lee, Ernie Hudson, Michael Wincott are all standouts in this. Um, you have a pretty great score and pretty great choices of music. Now I know that I usually am like, oh, whatever, they just bought the rights to a song. But the music in this film does complement it very well. It doesn't feel like they just put songs on the soundtrack. So in this case, I'd say it does benefit the film. Um, and apparently, one of the songs that was originally going to be on the soundtrack was Creep by Radiohead, which that would have been cool. It would have fit. Um, the action, it's not like an action movie, I wouldn't say. It's again more revenge, thriller, fantasy with the whole crow thing. Um, but yeah, I still think The action is pretty fun. The shootout in the club, I think that was pretty fun. Um, the Again, the style of the film is something that wasn't like a big thing at the time. It's got its own identity, only for Matrix to do it and people to be like, "Oh, the Matrix and not the Crow." Um, but yeah, like I don't know really how much I should say about this film because I love this film. I do. And I agree that it should be hailed as a classic. But also, um I just I just don't want to say much because again, this is a film that a lot of people love and I wouldn't want to like spoil anything. The most I will say here is I 100% recommend it, and I hope that I can find something good about the three sequels that came out after this. But yeah, that was my review of The Crow. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door, out.